Hey folks, this is Tully and welcome to some game dev. We're here again, as we've been the last few Sundays, doing game dev streams. We'll be on for approximately 2 hours, and then we'll be back after a 2-hour break for dinner, and we'll do some more streaming later this evening. But for this stream right now, we're jumping into some more game dev, specifically some cutscenes. Since we last took a look at things last week, there hasn't been a huge amount of changes, but the main thing I've done is I've added this extra little grid editor thing that is allowing me to load between all of the scenes more quickly. I was finding it a bit tedious to have to keep track of updating into here, going dungeons, woods, and then trying to remember which one was where in my head just by the name, like, oh, G7's right above G8, right? So that was which room again, whereas having them in this grid format has been helping me more quickly navigate through the maps that we've generated at this point. And most of the maps are kind of set up to allow us to kind of get through the first few runs of the game. You should be able to use, or I should be able to set up these maps to kind of be a starting point where the player can do maybe 1, 2, possibly 3 runs before they're able to like get to the point where they run out of content, essentially. So I want to start working on adding some additional cutscenes to some of these maps to try and guide the player a little bit, while also not trying to make it so that this is too guided and the player feels like they have no agency. There's kind of a fine line when we're kind of tutorializing in the beginning before we kind of open up and let the player explore and make mistakes on their own. That all being said, let's jump in with the first cutscene. So here, I've made an edit to this map. So this is, we spawn here next to the goddess statue. We head north, or I always get this mixed up. I should be facing the camera like this. Technically, this is north, this is south. So we head west out of here, which really I've now built the whole grid, I realize, in the wrong orientation as well. But regardless, we head this way into this map. And we used to have the enemy slime that you would face up here. And I was placing the first sword pickup for your kind of first ability slash over in this area. But what I was finding was we had done some work to make a animation. Drixie's been working pretty hard on trying to come up with something. Well, I shouldn't say pretty hard. She's concepted something that I think will work for the time being. I think she might want to re-edit it a little bit. She was saying she wants to see how it looks in game though. So part of the goal today is going to be getting this like animation showing up for basically the Omni weapon flying out of Hero, hovering over top of the sword, make the sword disappear, and have the Omni weapon absorb that sword, and then you unlock the slash ability. And we want to see if that little cutscene feels good. So we want to get that animation in so Drixie can do a pass on it and potentially improve it. And when I went to try and add it here, I started thinking about it and I realized you're not going to be able to see most of it, because what we have is Hero walking up this way. So you're going to have Hero's back to the camera, and Hero will be standing in front of the sword if we have the sword pick up here. So if the sword was right here, you would have some of that Omni weapon pickup animation being blocked by Hero. And I just would prefer if instead we see the Omni weapon fly forward, pick up the sword, and then return to Hero. So we want the Omni weapon to be picked up from this direction, which is what we had originally in the previous version. And kind of trying to find a way to make that work, I decided I'm going to move the sword pickup over to this map so that we can come down and see the sword. We can have Hero approach it, interact, get that animation. And then for this map, rather than it just be empty, something I thought could be neat is instead have the slime here within this little grassy part. And if you walk in this direction, there's a little cutscene of Hero spotting the slime and commenting on the fact that they don't really have a good way of defending themselves and that they should find a different way around. And if you still progress forward, you'll end up getting in a fight with that slime with no attacks and you will die. But if you do end up coming up around this way, you can kind of bypass the slime and continue forward to find the sword. Whether or not that's going to be fun and interesting, we'll find out in playtesting. But as I was saying last week, I need to stop pixel pushing. We need to put pen to paper and just make something, because I spend way too much time trying to think about the optimal, perfect way of making things work. And I do think like what I just explained about rearranging the sword pickup so that we can have a better visual of the animation of the sword being absorbed, like that stuff feels like pixel pushing, but it's also like good refinement. And so it's really hard to walk this tightrope of, am I going down the road of like changing things too much, or am I making good changes that will mean I won't have to redo so much work in the future? And it's like, I don't know if that even explains it well enough, but this I think is an example of something that I want to change to make sure that it's structural, but I don't want to spend forever tweaking the position of like I don't want to spend forever on, say, like dialogue or working on the voice lines or portraits right now. I want to just get the skeleton of the first few runs of the chapter up and running. So we're going to focus on that. So let's get a cutscene in here. So we'll go to our cutscene creator. We're going to be in F7, which again, just being able to look down here and be like, which room was this? Oh yeah, F7. This has been very helpful having this little editor. And this is going to be slime warning. We'll call it that. We'll update the default trigger to be this information. Make it a priority of 99, and I believe end of turn is what we want. I'm pretty positive. I'm going to double check with some of our other ones. I've been setting up a couple other cutscenes, nothing too crazy, but Trapped Adventurer is one. Trapped Adventurer dialogue. Here, end of turn. Okay, yeah, so that is what we want. So what is the dialogue here? A slime. Let's do small, stay open. Oh, maybe it's closed self actually, and we go to a medium dialog box, and Hero says, I don't have a weapon. Better to avoid it for now, I guess. Nah, we don't need the I guess. We'll take the unconfident dialogue of myself out of it, and we'll just say I don't have a weapon, better to avoid it for now. And again, I don't know if I love the ... in the a slime. I'm not positive I like this dialogue, but we're not going to stress over it. We're just going to get something in place, and we'll get feedback, and we'll figure out what works and what doesn't work. So there's the dialogue. Here's a dialogue asset, which is basically this cloned over here. This is our actual sequence, which is going to start the dialogue and advance it. I'm going to want to add more to this sequence. For now, let's get it playing, though. So we're going to come over to this scene, come back over to here, paste in this example, and we'll have this... Maybe we have this happen in any of these 3 tiles if you walk forward. Either that, or we have some spaces where if you step here or here, Hero steps up to this position. That's something we do in this cutscene, is we have like some adjustment cutscenes that play where Hero steps up and then plays this. I don't know if it, like, that makes sense because... Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I want to do here. Let's try it. Again, let's just put pen to paper. We're going to say that these two... This one here is going to be the actual cutscene. And this will just be adjust position. And this will be our new cutscene. So this is trigger name for this cutscene will be slime warning. We'll put that in here. It'll be an immediate cutscene, and we'll add this information. And then we're going to make another cutscene, which is an adjust position cutscene. So I think I can zero this out. We can rename this slime warning. I don't know if I want to keep writing adjust position every single time. Maybe we just add ADG for adjust at the end here, set the trigger name, and create the sequence. And then can I just undo... I can't undo the dialogue deletions, which is fine. Slightly annoying. So we'll do that. Okay, cool. And then this adjust. We'll need this piece. And that'll be the cutscene that gets triggered here. Go back to scene view, copy this, and we'll move this up twice. So if you step in any of these positions, maybe any of these three positions, yeah, anywhere here. I don't think I need this one then. Just trying to think about all the possibilities of how the character is going to move. If the character moves up here, this will catch them before they can get in this way, and they'll walk up to this spot. If they bypass it and they walk over here, then they'll walk down into this spot. And if they just come directly here, they'll just trigger it. Okay, I think I want to try that. So for the adjusts, here we have this one. This was a move to tile. Realistically, I guess I could have copied this. This also doesn't need a dialogue asset, and neither does this one, because they're not actually playing any dialogue. Interesting. I wonder... This menu might want like a no dialogue tick box or something, but it's also possible I may have just wanted to copy this as a base and then run the parser to parse the cutscene rather than use the tool. There's some workflow stuff I'm thinking about, which is not important. So if we come into here, let's do combat move to tile, and we want to move to 13.6. So it's 13,6 is the tile we want to move to. We're going to move the player, I believe, is the entity that we're moving. Yes. And then we do want to override the movement, because normally hero can only move one space. So this is going to be at least 2 spaces. So we're going to override the movement. This is another add I added recently for a different cutscene. In G6, I was playing around with having a similar kind of thing where heroes walking this way, and I want to remind the player that they've now circled all the way around G7. They should head down to try and help this trapped adventurer. So I added a pathing helper that will basically have hero step down here and mention like, oh, I think the adventurer is this way. This is a good example of something that I think might be a little too handholdy and I might want to remove, but we'll get some playtest feedback on it. And so when I was doing that one, I realized that if we ever want to adjust a position more than one space, we need a override. So we override the player's movement to 2 so that they can find this spot that we're trying to move them to. And that should be all that's needed. Just need to make sure that we're playing the right cutscene here, and we are. I think when we step here, it'll auto trigger, because the adjust position is basically moving the character the same way the player would. So I think the slime warning cutscene should happen as soon as this adjust cutscene is done. I just want to double check. Right, and I also want to set a flag. So in the same way here, I want to make sure that there is a not started flag for slime warning. So we should only adjust the player's position if they still have the cutscene to play. Okay, let's give all that a shot. A little bit weaving as I kind of figured that out, but I think this will be okay. Or my explanation was a bit weaving as I kind of work through all the problems. Yeah, okay, cool. Couple of things. That did work. So when we stepped here, it did move us to this position and the cutscene did play. Main problem is the dialogue. When we said close self and everything, we forgot to set the alignment to top center for both of these, so the dialogue will appear above Hero's head. And then we also want to make sure that Hero's facing at the end is correct. So let's see if we can do that with a combat set players facing. And again, I believe this should be north this way. And we are doing this for just the player. So we should move to this tile, and even if we went 14 and then up here, at the very end, Hero will face this direction. Okay, let's give that a shot. Should work a little better. Try this one this time. Interesting. The facing... Oh, that's very interesting. The facing triggered after the dialogue was done. Okay. So I guess rather than mess with the timing of all that, a relatively simple thing to do, which honestly this is probably fine regardless, is to make sure that when they get to this cutscene, we first change their facing here as part of this one, rather than trying to embed it in the adjusting. Cool. Oh, and then one other thing I keep noticing, which I want to fix real quick, is the floor is not set up correctly. I'm just going to overwrite the work in progress texture and then run my command here to regenerate the floor tiles, so that we don't have those white textured floors here for the new terrain I've generated before the stream started. And it does work if we just step here, that's good, and it doesn't re-trigger. All right, let's check the adjust position. So we'll step here. That time Hero chose to walk north, so it didn't really test the facing stuff. That's kind of interesting. I guess that makes sense, though. Whenever we tell the player or the enemy to move somewhere more than one tile away, they kind of randomize which direction they're going to take so that the AI isn't super predictable. But that means that sometimes Hero is just going to walk the way we want anyways. But yeah, there we saw we headed down, and it did change the facing before the dialogue started playing. So next part, we need to actually have the slime appear. So we're going to do the same thing we did for the Trapped Adventurer. We do some revealing of some tiles. Now, I don't love the way that I set this up. I'd like to see if we can fix this sequence step to not require us to make 3 different versions for what should be a simple setup. Reveal tile pattern has a distance. Yeah, I don't know why I need to do it this way, and I didn't bother last stream figuring it out, but I'm going to maybe take a small amount of time to look into it now. So let's reveal tile pattern. Let's bring it up, and we're going to reveal around 1310, and we're going to do a distance of 2. So that's going to be this tile, here, and here. That might be too much, but I want to give that a shot. And then what does this do? If we don't have any of the extra delays, how do these get revealed? They all get revealed at once. Okay. So if I want them to reveal separately, how do I do that? Is it incremental delay? I feel like I built this to work the way I think it should work. Not quite. So it's not adding a delay between each of the revealed sections. It's just making it so each section has a longer reveal time. Okay, let's go reveal tile pattern sequence step. So when we call reveal, we're going to find a tile, add an offset, interesting. And this is the incremental reveal. I think I was trying to set this up, but looking at it now, I realize all I have to do is just have a yield sorry, one second. Return yield. No? Yield return. There we go. New. Wait for seconds. And this only gets triggered if this delay value is not equal to 0. And then we will wait for seconds by the delay amount. So we will loop through, reveal everything in this section. And then we go up a distance and we'll reveal everything in that distance. Wait, reveal everything in the next distance. Okay, that's the type of functionality I want. Now this delay should be better named. Rather than just delay, this is like delay between distances. That's hopefully communicating what I want. I think this whole reveal incremental was just bad code, and it probably could be removed, but for the time being, let's just see how this feels. Because I don't think I'm using this anywhere else, and I can't see why I would want the tiles to move up slower. Yeah, that looks better. What if instead we went from here, or 13.7, and we rippled out this way to reveal the enemy? So we went this way, we start here and we go... It would need to be 13.8. I'm curious how this looks. So instead of revealing the enemy and then revealing out around, what if instead we reveal from the edge of our vision? That looks a little better. Also, the slime is broken. Let's re-slice the animations. I think when I got some of Drixie's changes, some stuff broke. See if the slime is behaving properly now. Yes. Well, the slime is still trying to path to its old pathing, and it seems to not care about the water tiles, which is interesting, and something I will figure out a different day. This is a good location to test that when I do go to fix that bug. For now, let's assume that the enemy slime maybe starts facing away from us and have it maybe patrol... like, I'm trying to think, what is it? It's going to be an interesting patrol path here. Maybe it goes 12, 11, and then 14.9, so it's kind of going between these 2 points. And again, because of the randomization of whether they decide to go left or right, it'll be a bit weird, or it'll be a bit more random how they choose to move around between these 2 points. Sometimes they might go around the edge, sometimes they might go diagonally. I think that's okay. Why is this one re-triggering? Slime adjust. Slime needs to be not started. And this one is slime warning. I thought this was working a moment ago. Slime warning, slime adjust. As long as slime warning has not started, you should be able to do this. Okay. Might do a little bit of debugging to try and figure out why our cutscene system is bugged in this way. We'll go here first. Doesn't re-trigger on this side, but I think that's just because that cutscene is set to non-repeat. So once I trigger the adjust once, it definitely won't trigger a second time. Yeah, it's still triggering. Okay. This is slime warning not started. That's the required flag. Technically that should be set to complete by the time we finish. It's probably a typo. Oh, you know what? It's the same problem it was last time, actually. And now I remember, we modified this here, and we did not run the cutscene parser. Right now, editing this stuff does not live update the JSON file that kind of represents all of this metadata. This metadata isn't actually being used by the engine. It's a JSON file that represents all this data. And because of that disconnect, it means that we can get into these weird states. Yeah, now it works. I feel like I maybe need to find a way eventually to make it so that if we modify something in here, it is smart enough to go find the JSON entry that this data, where this data is being stored, and update it just without me having to do anything. But that requires making like an on edit for this scriptable object. But realistically, I already have one because this is a custom editor UI with all the colors and stuff. So it shouldn't be too hard to detect edits to these specific fields. And really, it's all under this metadata class. Yeah, okay. We're not doing that today, but I definitely want to fix that because I feel like I keep running into this problem where I'm like, I've changed the data. Why is it not working? And it's because I haven't hit a button that actually pushes that data to the correct JSON. I'm liking the way that's feeling. I like it more with the enemy being revealed forward, so it almost feels like the vision is being filled in rather than the enemy appearing and then filling in around them. I think the 0.5 reveal delay between each distance is feeling better here. And that allows us to avoid it. Okay. I think that's enough for now. This adjust position still feels a little weird. I'm going to move this one in so it feels more like you're moving towards this. It's going to feel more odd because we're going to just move down for no reason. But this feels worse because we're moving this way for no reason. Depending on if we're moving up, it's going to feel really odd to kind of almost move to the side. So we can move this way with no problems. But as soon as we move here, Hero just moves to that position. Yeah, I think I like that more, and I'm going to make the same call here. So essentially, if Hero tries to walk here at all, we're just going to shift up. Small optimization, but I'm also going to reset the override range back to -1 so it's not changed. Not really necessary, but that way it doesn't, the board search for trying to find the right tile to move to will be a little bit more optimal. Yeah, it feels a little weirder if you don't move onto the exact tile I expect you to, but I think that's okay. One thing I'm also thinking about is players may not realize that they can move onto these grass tiles, so I'm definitely going to want to have some amount of grass near the exit here. Metadata, if I just set these to grass manually rather than go update the file and then regenerate these props. I don't like that it's using this grass. Perfect. I thought that might require more randomization, but it did not. Set these to grass and then regenerate props. So now the character, or the player, sorry, has to figure out that they can walk through grass in order to exit this room, so hopefully they'll remember that when they get to the next room. And even if they don't figure it out, here, and they forget that they can move through the grass for some reason, even though they just did it, their only option would be to move backwards and hopefully see that they had just moved through this grass and go, oh yeah, I can move through this. And then knowing that they can move through the grass, I'm hoping they opt to go this way rather than run into the slime. Okay, cool. Next problem. I would like, in this area, to replace this slime here, which is currently the same green slime as in the F7 room. I'd like it to be a smaller slime variant that Trixie had made a while ago, which we're going to have be a little weaker. Yeah, so we have this green one. I want to make this the little bubble slime. So if we take a look at our characters, if we go up all the way past the props, minimize the props for now, and the floor textures, honestly the whole dungeon section can get minimized. We're currently using this bubble slime, but there should be a mini slime, which is like a littler, more blue version. So if I find the prefab we're using, which is just generically the enemy container, and we copy this and rename this IT mini slime. Does this need it does need to be addressable, and its name should just be the name of the prefab. Just get rid of the .prefab from the end of it. We should be able to just change it out with this ID, and it should be able to find and load it. And then lastly, we want to swap out the actual sprite, which is going to be here. Instead of using this animation controller, should just need to swap it to this one, and that should just have it be the mini slime. Now in terms of stats, that's a slightly different problem to solve. I think the stats are embedded directly on the enemies. Oh, I hadn't thought about this. This is our first time seeing the new number system for the charge turns over the little slime, and it doesn't work nearly as well here because the little slime isn't as big, and so it's obviously covering more of it. Okay. We can always rearrange that UI. I'm not going to worry about it for now. It does look weird. You know what? This is quick. This is quick. Judgment call. Let's go to... Oh goodness, this is going to be a status, simple status bar component, I think is what the enemy uses. And this is the CT number. We're just going to add a 5 in here for visibility. So maybe instead of having it here, if we have it... if I just switch to 2D mode, that'll be easier. What if it's kind of lined up with this little crystal, which is meant to represent the next attack they're doing anyways? I have a feeling this is going to feel bad because it's going to extend too far out to the left and kind of cover Hero a little bit, depending on Hero's placement or other enemies, if there are other enemies in the area. Yeah. So what are our other options? Well, we could reduce the size of this health bar. It's currently 18. What if we brought it in a bit to like 8, which is very small. And then this would have to be 7, it looks like, weirdly. Then we could move in the telegraphing crystal a little bit. And then we could move in the CT number. And now the health bar is very small. But this thing is aligned center. How does this work? This is the center point. So if I want this to work, I need to move this over a little bit. Oh, the UI setup here is actually quite bad. Yeah, I don't like this. Okay. How do I rearrange all this? This needs a bit of an overhaul, but I don't want it to go too crazy. Can we undo the changes we've made? I guess we can go into source tree and revert them all. Yeah, okay, I might revert it if need be. For now, I'm just going to say, let's take this piece, let's move it over by 5 units this way. Move this over 5 units, so that'll go to 13.5. Nope, I'm adding to it apparently. 21.5. 23.5? Yeah, okay, and then the CT, I'm just going to manually move. Okay, and then the center point of this is now here. It's relatively even on both sides, so it'll be more centered on the enemy. Still don't love this, but I think long term we probably want to just take a bit of a harder look at making something a lot better. The health bar is completely busted, so let's zoom in a bit and see if we can get a better understanding of what's happening. It looks like the health bar is both not positioned correctly, as well as the frame is not being... it's getting cut off too much. This has an original width of 84. Is this set up to be sliced? Okay, well that's problem number 1, is it is not set up to be sliced. So it needs to have this stuff moved in so that we can modify the external size without modifying, or modify the internal size without modifying the whole thing. So if we come into here and then change this to sliced mode, we can see that it like properly aligns. That might be all we need to do here. It's hard to tell. Partly because the prefab's canvas size is not in a properly dimensioned space. Yeah, so not quite. Can we modify it in scene to get an idea of what the numbers are supposed to be? Okay, so if we take a look at our front end, let's turn off the UI 1, which is kind of a thing that we use to break the resolution down. Turn off our gizmos for a second. And then if we look at this HP bar, it looks like it's a little too long. Yeah, it's 7. Okay. That's actually not that complicated. It just needs to be an even number for the pixel perfect stuff to work. Although my UI technically isn't pixel perfect. Most of the environment stuff is, but the UI definitely isn't. What did I call that? Simple status bar is what we were editing. So this health bar just needs to be 6 instead of 7. Perfect. Okay. By shrinking the enemy's health bar so much, it means that we're going to have a much harder time telling how much damage we've done to them. Keep forgetting with the zoom in that we're even able to attack. Oh. Okay. The slime attacks are not set up the same way anymore. We need to do some work there. I'm trying to think if there's anything else we can do quickly to kind of validate this system. I just realized this isn't even pixel aligned properly. Is that because this is an odd number? It is. Yeah, even that isn't lining up quite correct, but that's because this thing is also an odd number. All of these textures need to always be powers of 2, otherwise the pixel stuff gets really weird, especially when you start adding splicing. If we make this thing 12... and then move it over a little bit more to somewhere like here at 7. And then expand this to 8. Really? I don't love that. I don't like that we had to change the width of the health bar to be 9. That doesn't seem right. I think it's supposed to be 8. I just think it looks weird when we're in editor. Yeah, everything's kind of broken. It was only kind of half working at the size we had made it. Alright, let's fix it. So if we come into here, open this up here, bring this into Sprite. Sprite? Open this PNG. There we go. We're just going to go canvas size and make it height 6. And now there's just some transparency at the top here so that it's a power of 2. Then when we come back in, we'll need to re-edit this. So that's where the top is. Save. And now this has a height of 6, but it's just getting cut off. Super fun. These dimensions don't even look that far off. Why is this so busted? Shouldn't matter. Well, we've made it worse. What was meant to be a quick edit to make this more readable has become a lot more. Unlockable characters with the hydration. Thank you. Also, good day. Welcome. Okay. Okay. We're going to stick with this for a moment here, but I'm not going to spend forever on this. I'm just going to see if I can get it to load at all correctly. So it looks like it disappears because it's too small at this point. If we set it to 6, it's too small. If we set it to 7, that still looks too small. If we set it to 8, that starts to look kind of correct. Is it because of the fact that we're not the proper size? No, because even if, or sorry, not the proper width, even if we set the width of this texture to what it should be at 24:6, it's still incorrect. There's no scaling issues. It's been a while since I've touched UI work. I'm not sure why this has to go to 8 in order for it to render correctly. But that does look like it is rendering correctly when I set it to a size of 8. Is there something else in this thing that's scaling? Doesn't look like it. I have a feeling this is just an in-editor problem versus in-engine, like when it's running problem, but I'm going to set it up so it looks correct here, and then we'll see what happens when we run. Let's change this back to 12. Let's change this to be down -1, which we can see isn't lining up correctly here. And this shouldn't have to be a pixel of 9. Okay, and then this whole thing I want to move over a little bit more. How bad does that look? Pretty bad. Okay. Let's try this a different way. What do I want this to look like? What am I trying to achieve? If we walk up to here, we want to be able to have this text appear next to this symbol, and we want to be able to show how much health the enemy has remaining. We don't want this information to overlap into other tiles too much. It can overlap a little bit, because obviously there's not a ton of room here because of just the sizing and the spacing of stuff. We don't want it up because we might have larger enemies, so we do want to line it to the bottom. Okay. I'm going to revert the file, and we're going to start back over. We're going to start going to here. We're going to change the size back down, and we're going to save it back out as its original bad size. Quote unquote bad size. We're going to come into source tree, and we're going to revert the object. So if we go to file status, go look for the object we modified, which is going to be somewhere in art UI. this thing. We're going to discard changes on this. And then simple. We're looking for simple status bar, which is technically... Oh, it's not in the JRPG project. It's infinite retries, which is good. Cool. So we did that. So now it's back to the way it was originally. So then let's save all those changes. Put back in a 5. Instead, we're going to just move this all down. Can you please show me... Oh, I'm just zoomed in too far. So we're going to position this about here. Can this not be... Let's just do this so it's at least reasonable numbers. 8, 6. Sure, this can be 14, and this can have a width of not 95. Worst case, I imagine this will only ever get to 2 digits, which is a different problem in and of itself. We'll have to worry about alignment. For now, let's assume it can't go above 1. Let's make it a width of 16 then. It's more reasonable. Okay, those are some more manageable numbers. So then, from here, if we just take this whole thing, let's put the CT under, and then shift the whole thing to the left. Because there's a weird alignment, some of the stuff moves in unpredictable ways. So what's aligned weirdly in here? Is it the health bar? Shift to the left. This is aligned to center. This is aligned to left. So if we do center alignment for this one and center alignment for this one, then when we shift to the left, it should all move together, correct? Good. So we're just going to move all this 10 pixels to the left. We'll save that. And now the health bar remains the same size, but we've moved the CT number down. How far to the right does the health bar now stick out? A fair amount. So if there was a slime here, that would be a problem. If Hero's standing here, there is some weirdness with this overlap. So we want to shrink the width of this, but it just kind of breaks if we do that. Let's not try and fix the brokenness. Let's just let it be broken. If we just do that, that looks close to right. How does it actually render out? Badly. Okay, what are the magic numbers that this thing needs in order to function correctly? Gizmos, text. This helped me find the object I'm looking for. Go into the health bar. Turn gizmos back off again. $10? 10's fine, but then the right side is broken. 12. 13. Then the right side is broken. Okay, so what if we do like that? I think I just need to change the health bar to be 13 then. Sorry, I changed a couple of different numbers without communicating there, but essentially just tweaking stuff. I think this just needs a width of 13, and it looks wrong, but it works correctly. I need to do a UI pass at some point and actually figure out pixel precision with UI, because I spent so long getting like the world to be pixels precise, but I have not done the same amount of work on my UI systems. Yeah, and that looks like it's overlapping Hero a little bit, but I think if I get Drixie's help to set up some sort of like proper frame that holds all this information together and like puts it in like a consolidated like box, essentially, it'll feel like it's underneath this character and feel more condensed. Yeah, I'm gonna go with that for now, because at least the number isn't overlapping with the enemy that we want to show. Next thing we need to do is I need to open up I'm just gonna move this to the other window. I need to open up the actual slime. So if we do slime and then look at bubble slime for reference, I believe this one without a file type is the Asprite file. Sure, I'm just going to drag it over. Yeah, that's the Asprite file. And then if we look for the, not bubble slime, but mini slime. Oh, do I not see a mini slime Asprite file? Mini slime. Oh no. There's the JSON file for it. Is it small slime? Oh, it's called small slime. Okay, I want to save this in the other folder with the name mini slime, I think. Okay, now if we look here, why is it that when they try and perform the melee attack, or I think it's bash? No, that's a new animation that Drixie's been playing with. This is the melee attack. Okay. If we take a look at the cell properties in here, there's a pause on that one. On 68, I believe that was. Is there any more pauses? No, the only metadata we have is on 68. So then if we come back in here to this one and we take a look at the same melee for the mini slime, it also has a pause on 68. Interesting. So the animations are the same? Then I'm not entirely sure why this slime is breaking when it performs its attack. Okay, we'll have to dig into that real quick. Mini slime, why are you broken? So if we wait a few turns, mini slime performs the attack and then is just held on this like flashing animation. And we didn't see any damage on Hero. If we take a look at the actual prefab, I just want to make sure that we're calling the right animation. Let's collapse a lot of this stuff down. Mini slime. Mini slime has an attack pattern of randomize between AI smash and AI chase, and AI smash is using this AI smash ability. So if we select that one, that is doing the wait on idle, which is fine. And then it's playing melee 1, waiting for the pause, which we did validate exists, and then it finishes on, like, once it finds the pause, it re-enables the speed. Flash the target, does a particle spray based off of the direction of the attack, and then plays some damage effects. This should all be the same AI smash that the big slime is using that does operate correctly. Let's go back to zoom 2 rather than being so zoomed in. We don't need to look at the UIs intensely anymore. We're not seeing the flash from the attack. So that means it does not get past this section. Interesting. It's possible the JSON data is just not correct, but the ASprite files are, and we just need to re-export. So we're going to take a look in the actual data files and validate if this is showing correctly. Ah, it is not. This does not have any pauses in the metadata. Okay. So even though the small slime is set up correctly, it has not been exported correctly. So if we export these up a level to mini slime over top of this PNG, yes, and then over top of this JSON file, yes, packed, array, everything should be good there, and hit export. Now when we take a look at this file, we see there's some extra metadata about the pauses on frame 67 and 76, which is probably just a start counting at 0 is why they're different. Okay, so then if we run the slice anim characters, that's going to take a moment. Now we should have the pause set up. It's weird to me that we didn't hold the animation though. Well, that broke some other stuff. Cool. So it has a walk animation, a hit, a death, and a melee 1. It's not overly complicated. But it does have some additional animations in here for its ranged attacks, which it cannot do. Or it does not have animations for, I should say. Which is a little odd. Are these the problem? Yeah, I think it's playing these over and over again. Yeah. So my animation system only allows for very specific names for the animation, is how I'm handling importing in from ASprite. And range is not one of those names. So this needs to be... cast_1, and then it'll properly be set up with a animation parameter which will gate it from playing when it shouldn't. Cool. So then I'm going to also save as this into the mini slime folder. Mini I want to make sure this is the same name. If we go PNG files, I want it to be named this, but as an ASprite file. Cool. So saving in the right spot, and then we're going to export one more time. So export sprite sheet. Going to make sure this is in the mini slime folder. It is. Same thing with this one. Yep, it's in the right spot. We're going to export that data, and then we will double check that we can slice and anim the files and that it doesn't break again. And now it has properly named files with the actual cast parameter being added, and these animations are gated by cast being hit. Okay, yeah, so that's all set up better now. And I think that took a fair bit longer than I thought it was going to, but that's part of the process. So we now have a little mini slime character, which is a smaller version and a different color than the big one. And that will serve to be a weaker enemy. It's still hitting just as hard though. So we got to figure out, how do we make a enemy variant with different stats? I had not really put that together. We've mostly been prototyping with a single enemy this entire time. And the stats are generated via this hard-coded logic. I think long-term, I would like to have some sort of like, I was going to say data structure, but really all the information is inside of the prefab anyways. I'm just not sure whether or not I want to have to move all of the stat information into an Excel sheet. For now, let's just make a series of public values that allow us to change the stats of an enemy. Yeah. Hydrate scene. Thank you, unlockable characters. And also, Rendquist says slime ... Yes, many slimes. I actually don't know what to take from that comment. All right, hydration complete. Thank you. I'm staying alive. Appreciate it. Let's do attack. Let's do a defense stat. We don't have any magic right now in the game, so I'm not going to worry about that. Probably should. HP. Those are probably the three main stats we care about. We probably should just do magic attack and magic defense while we're here. This is a bit of a hack, but we should at least hack slightly good. Cool. And by default, we had the values 7, a defense of 9, and then, okay, yeah, 9, 7, and 11. And we were giving them HP of 30, I believe. Yeah, cool. So we're going to say those are the default stats. We're just going to make them public. This becomes m_attack. Please autocomplete. You are not autocompleting. Is that because these are static constructors? What a nightmare. What a nightmare. Why is this static? There's no reason. Is it because this whole thing is static? Like, why did I decide to make this a static call? No, there's no reason for it. I don't think. It'll complain if there is. Scriptable objects for slimes. Yeah, we could do it that way. I tend to do most of my data stuff through Excel just because I find Excel easier to work with. So, like, I have already built in the past, like, a monsters tab with, like, all the monster stats. And then I bring all of this information in via a TSV most of the time. So if we look for TSV and then look at, I think this is Heir of Embers, but it's a better example. We can see that I have the monster data. Please open this in Visual Studio, not Notepad. But, oh, come on. And then drag this back over. Yeah, so most of this stuff is in like this TSV format when I download it. And then I, for the sake of runtime efficiency, have a little parser that parses all that TSV information into JSON files for me. So we can look at the monster JSON file and it has all that information converted. And I find that just a little easier for me personally than scriptable objects, because oftentimes it's just easier to modify things in spreadsheets than it is from objects. It requires more steps because I have to download the TSV and then run a parser to convert it into this JSON data, but it's just easier. And then I just addressably load all these JSON files at runtime. Like, it's the first thing I do when the game opens, essentially. That just feeds all of this data directly into the backend. But I don't feel like hooking that up right now. So we're going to instead just put all that information in here. And it did not save the information. Very helpful. Let's finish filling these in. What about importing through an importer into a scriptable object so it's ready to eat? So I find generally, if we take a look at monster design data, I find it's easier to have this like design data holder that holds all the information inside of it. So if we take a look at how this works, generally speaking, I'm able to just do like design data and then give it an ID for the monster I want, and then I can just grab that information directly. This is inside of updating a list. This is inside of like some flag parameters for keeping track of which monsters we've defeated. So like we might have for this flag what monster you need to kill in order to complete this quest essentially, and this is just fetching this information from this design data storage. And again, this is just a list of dictionary IDs for the design data class. And this could instead be in a scriptable object that I'm modifying, but I don't know, this is just how I set things up. It's more familiar and I like it more. I don't know if there's an actual difference between loading a, like, because I do like this instantiation of like the addressable, and I load and JSON convert the information into the data holder essentially. And this is all done through some like generic systems, but like I load all this information directly into the design data holder. I don't know if this is faster than like loading a scriptable object. Yeah, it's deserialize the JSON and deal with it. And because it's all genericized, I can have as many different JSON files I want with as many different design datas. I essentially just need to set up a new design data holder class and a new design data. And once I've done that, I can create a JSON that contains this schema, and it just works. Yeah. Seven, 7, 9, 11, and 30 were the values. And then we're gonna have to do that for each one of these. Curious, I guess the scriptable objects have the benefit of their event mechanism. I'm not actually super familiar with their event mechanism. I do use scriptable objects for some data, specifically like stuff that would be too difficult to input into an Excel sheet. Like I do a lot of my sequences as scriptable objects. So if I want to have like a specific series of events that happen through my sequences, those tend to be scriptable objects with some heavy customization in order to make these more readable for me personally. Like whether or not it's indented or not indented determines whether or not it's a blocking step or whether or not it'll just execute and move on to the next one immediately in the same frame. But I'm not familiar with the event system that you're referring to. Although there's a lot of Unity stuff I'm not familiar with. I kind of don't keep myself up to date. I mostly kind of stay in my old ways of doing Unity that I've known for a long time. I'm looking for enemies. If we go back to this one. Okay, this one has the data set up correctly. So does this one, and so does this one. It was only the mini slime because I had it open that looked to be in a broken state. Okay, so now, in theory, we should be able to get hit, take some damage. Right, we were kind of already doing this before. The difference we want to see is we want to change those stats. Okay. Do I want to go full crazy on the... you know what, it's been a while. Let's take a look at... Let me bring up my damage formula sheet. This is another thing I haven't looked at in a minute. Where was the simplified version of this? Sorry, one second. I'm just trying to figure out... What was the final version of this sheet that I liked? I think it was this one? Yeah, inverse. Okay, so let's take a look here. The current stats that we start out with are, I believe, a player stats of 5. Yeah, I don't remember how to fully read this. Okay. No, I do. This is saying if the player's stat is, say, 7 and the enemy's defense is 10, this is how much damage they'll do. And then this one is saying the opposite. If the player's defense is 6 and the enemy's attack is 6, or the enemy's attack is 7, then we'll take 12 damage. And these yellow columns... Oh, this is the average between the min and the max. Okay, so we'll take between 11 and 13. And these values are determining the percent change, because we have some sort of like... Well, I built an equalization system into this. I don't remember all the formulas, but we spent a stream doing it. I'm sure I could go back and rewatch that stream and figure out what I did. But essentially, the more every time you go up a level, so here at 7 attack and 7 defense, I'm dividing between these, I believe, to find some sort of ratio through some formula, and you get more increases in damage the further away you are from the enemy by like a somewhat exponential nature, while also capping it so that you can't go above too high of a rate, so you can only ever get double based off of this difference. Okay, cool. I kind of remember this. I don't know if I'm explaining that well, but essentially these are some damage formulas, and this sheet allows me to essentially modify the enemy's stats and see how it will interact with the player. Currently, we have a defense of 9, I believe. Defense of 9 and attack of 7. So, defense of 9. And an attack of 7. Okay. The question is, what are the player's current stats? Are they still 7 and 11? We're going to go take a look at the... Oh, what is that? Persistent unit persistent data? This has where we hard code the initial player stats before they start upgrading through the skill trees. And yeah, we are starting with an attack of 7 and a magic attack of 11 and a defense of 7 and a magic defense of 11. Okay, so 7 and 7 is what we ended up with. So our starting stats are 7 here, and the player's defense ended up being starting here. Right above green, that gray. Okay, so 7 and 7 is where we started. So that means that we should be taking 9 damage from the enemy between 8 and 10, and we should be dealing 5? I don't think that's accurate. The power values may not be up to date. Let's take a look. Also, what was the response on the event stuff? They have an on enable and on disable. Some others, like mono behavior, it's, you know, something you can draw on if you design it that way. That's fair. Yeah, so your basic kind of component structure. I don't think I even draw on any of that for the scriptable objects. I only use it for the visualization in Engine, and mostly for the reorderable list, so I can move steps of my sequences up and down. And I get it, you stay in your lane for convenience and speed of design. That, and also just being, like, I don't know, old. I've been doing stuff in Unity for like 15 years. It's hard to kind of break out of old habits at some point. When it's like, this is just how I've done it. I've done it this way in previous projects. It's worked. It's fine. It's just, there are times, like, there were, like, land shed, or, I don't remember what the phrase is for that, but they're watershed moments, I don't even know if I'm using that right, but there's been moments where like I went out of my way to learn addressables, which was like a new feature, honestly, probably like 8 years ago now. But like when addressables came out, I was like, I want to learn how to do this. I want to figure out how these work. And like once I figured them out, which I don't even think I fully am using the full power, but once I had enough understanding, it kind of became like a center pillar stone of how I do like data loading. So there have been moments when I've dug into stuff, but most of the time it's only when I want to build a feature that I specifically can't do with my existing understanding and knowledge. AI smash. How do I see your base power again? Is that built in here? Yes, power default. Ah, the power default of smash is 15 because it's a stronger ability than the base one. So if we change this up to 15, then yeah, we see the enemy doing 12 to 14 to us, and we receive, the enemy should be receiving about 5 damage. Let's get slash and see if that's true. We'll go start in H8, load the scene, get the sword, and then walk over and fight that mini slime. Okay, so we'll pick up the sword. Okay, and then we'll head over to the next scene. Yeah, and we're dealing 6 pretty consistently. 5, okay. Yeah, and there's a bit of, like, I give like a 10% variance in there, I think, or some amount of variance. Is that listed here? Doesn't look like I listed. So we are within the realm. We are receiving about the right amount of damage, and we're dealing the right amount of damage. So I think these values are correct. So then the question is, how much do we want to reduce the mini slime? Because we can kind of fight back and forth with this guy fairly well. We end up killing it and losing down to 27% health. The slime never shrunk away. Okay. Different problem. Oh, and then it's back to idling. Okay, there's an event missing on the death. But just to finish this thought, we're taking about half damage. There's going to be a little bit of variation there, but it should be mostly equal. I want these to feel like once you get this weapon, I want it to feel like you're pretty powerful. And I think that I'm not going to give you defend right away like I'm currently doing. I think defend does unlock a lot of the power of like the mechanics. It makes the game feel a lot better. But for this starting part, I don't necessarily want to have to deal with it. I think I want to let the slime hit you at least once. Yeah, okay. I think I'm going to make a change. I'm going to make it so the mini slimes aren't using the smash attack. I'm going to have them do a little hit. We might need to have Drixie make us an animation to make that seem smaller. But we'll do a little hit with this, and we'll change the... Well, if we just by reducing it to a smaller attack, that will reduce the damage by about 4 points. But I think we might even want to bring the enemy's attack down a little further. If we bring it down 5, that's a pretty large jump. I think I might be fine with 6. Like, it doesn't feel like a lot, but 1 point down on the attack and 5 points down on the power of the ability it's using... And that's halving the amount of damage that we're taking, essentially. More than halving, depending how you count it. It's like 2.5 times less damage. So that might be enough to make this enemy feel weaker. And then I do want the enemy to maybe die a bit faster, so you don't have to hit slash as much. So if we bring the enemy's defense down, they currently have 30 HP. We could also just tweak the HP down. But if we bring the defense down to something like 7, then we're going to deal 9 to it. If we bring it down to 6, we're going to deal 17, which is a pretty large difference. I guess the question is, how much of a difference do we want the player to feel like they're doing? So if we're hitting a small slime and we're doing 12 at the very first run before we upgraded any points into our attack stat, and then we're hitting the big slime for 5, you're going to have an easy time versus the little slimes, and then all of a sudden feel like you're having a harder time versus the big slimes, but they're going to feel tankier. I think that's what I want. I think we're going to change the baby slime to have defense of 5 and an attack of 6, and then in order to make this maybe not too shottable, we might need to pump its health up. That feels weird. Yeah, okay. Let's give this a shot. I'm going to just see how it feels. I'm going to go in here. We're going to change the health to 25. So we're going to make it 2 shottable. We're going to change the attack to, what did I say, 6, and the defense to 5. 5 and 6. Defense of 5, attack of 6. Okay. The order is backwards, but yeah, that's right. And then we're going to change it. So instead of using the AI Smash, it's going to use the dash attack, which is a much quicker ability. It has a CT of 2 right now. I might just bump that up to a CT of 3. And then you should be able to walk up to it, hit it once, and then it'll hit you back, and then you hit it again, and it should die. So you're basically going to trade blows with it. But it's going to hit pretty, like, it's going to hit you not a whole lot. So these should start to feel very foddery. Let's give it a shot. Yeah, okay. That might be too weak, but it definitely feels a lot easier to deal with. And if we don't have the defend, we don't have to worry about there being such of a, like, almost dance about finding the right timing windows to punish. We don't have to worry about the punish window part of the gameplay. We can just trade a couple blows, take a bit of damage, but it feels more like a small annoyance more than like, oh, I'm doing something wrong. Sure. Let's say that's good. I want to figure out what's going on with the death now. So if we look at the bubble slime, does this have any kind of cell properties, any user data associated with it? Namely on the last frame? No. Not seeing anything. The death is somewhere between, I think because of the starting with 1 versus starting with 0 in the JSON file, I think it's between 56 and 63. So we should also be able to check the slime's JSON file to see whether or not there's anything here. $67? No, that's in the melee. Yeah, so there's no special like data associated with any of these frames. 37. Oh, I had like a pause originally on the hit at some point. Yeah, but I don't even think we're using that. Maybe, but what's weird about that is we don't even have that mirrored. I have 2 windows of A-Sprite open, and I need it to not. Sorry, 1 second. Okay, good. Each time I click on it, I'm like open, and it's not. Yeah, so we only had it on the southwest hit. We didn't have a similar hit frame on this side, which we're not even using the hit anyways. So that shouldn't be related. I guess I'll have to go take a look at the knocked out status effect. What gotcha did I set up and fail to account for this time? Okay, so on enable of the status effect, we're going to try and play the death animation. On animation complete. On animation complete is what we're waiting for. So then the question is, does the slime not have an on animation complete event? Did somehow that not get created? Let's do slime. We're looking for the mini slime. I'm going to open up this file and then find its death animation. Double click on that. Try again. Here we go. It does have a process animation for animation complete. So it should be able to see when this animation is done. And once the animation is over and we get to that final frame, I believe if it's not a hero, it will shrink away. Perhaps there's a problem with the alliance? Mini slime? Is that being generated in here? I think it is. It is an alliance of enemy. Okay, so it's not a hero, so it should shrink away when it dies. So then my expectation is, for whatever reason, it's not hitting this wait on animation event sequence step. But the normal slime does, but for some reason the mini slime isn't. Alright, debugging time it is. Everyone's favorite time. Let's go through the code. Let's attach the debugger. Enable, and then get the sword. Walk up to here. We're going to hit it once. And then when we hit it again, it will die. So we're going to add a breakpoint inside of the death in here. And then we're also going to add a breakpoint in the wait on animation sequence event. Here. So we're going to set up an observer. We're going to wait until the animation's done. Then we remove the observer. By entity ID, if we don't have an that should be fine too. Yeah, we're providing an animation. So it's not even using the event system, or at least it... Yeah, because the event ID should not be set in this situation. Yeah, so this all should be fine. I'm not seeing any initial problems with the code. Let's see if it hits the breakpoints we expect. Okay. We're setting the death animation. We're getting the alliance on this thing, and we do see that it is of type enemy. We're setting up our sequence, so we're going to delay. We're going to set the animation speed to 1 just to validate in case the enemy was in the middle of an attack. We're going to set the bool trigger death, and then we're going to have a delay of 10 seconds to make sure that, like, that's why it stays flattened for a while. If this is delaying to make sure it doesn't continue to a new animation until after 10 seconds, which is more of just a safety feature for this exact moment so the game doesn't break. Then we wait on the animation, and then as long as the alliance is not hero, we're adding some steps to shrink the transform of the object, then toggle off the sprites, and then increment the enemies defeated. Yeah, sure. Past Tolhi, you're probably right, but that's fine. We're not worrying about that right now. And then it starts the sequence, and then it does some additional stuff like sending some notifications and things. Okay, so then the sequence should be in process. So if we continue... Ooh, we get a good Unity crash. That's fun. Yeah, Unity crashed. Cool. Cool, cool, cool. Very awesome. Let's just close Visual Studio and try again. Okay, I'm gonna reopen. Let's find a script file. Just click this one just to get Visual Studio loading up. Okay. Debug, attach debugger again. Enable for this session. Sometimes Unity gets mad at me if I have too many weird breakpoints open, so we're going to just delete all the ones that we're not currently using. And in fact, we're also going to just remove and re-add these ones. Yeah, I know. The project's too big. I'm sorry. All right. Let's click back in here. It's going to recompile, which hopefully should fix the breakpoints being warnings. How are we doing on time? Oh wow, we're coming up on the end of the 2 hours. Almost time for dinner. Yeah, I don't know what Visual Studio is talking about, but it's constantly telling me that I've reached a point where it's too large, and it's no longer going to be able to do some meta stuff, and I'm like, sure. Maybe related to the crashes occasionally. Currently unable to reach. I'm going to ignore it and move on. I believe the breakpoint should be being hit. I'm not sure why it's giving me that warning. Shoot. Okay, we gotta disable that one for now, because we're gonna hit that animation every time the character moves, as well as a number of other spots where we're detecting the completion of animations. But we still have the breakpoint on... on the start of death. So once we hit that, then we can go back and wait for animation complete. We should also check to make sure we're adding the observer correctly. And Animation complete was hit for animation complete, but in which context? Let's check here. We cannot tell. I'm going to assume that was a previous animation complete receiver. The enemy is in the middle of dying. This is the player right now. Okay, now we're getting an animation receiver. This is for the mini slime. Okay, cool. So this is where we're waiting for the on complete. Correct. Receive event. What are we expecting? Event name. Please render. Yeah, okay. So this is where we're waiting for the animation complete event. And I'm concerned that it's never hitting that. Yeah. So we're going to pause. We're going to click on the slime. We're going to go to the animator. It does think it's on Southwest Death. Can you please load the animations for me, maybe? Okay. And this definitely has an animation complete. Can we double check to make sure that this character has a animation receiver? It does, and it's hooked up to the correct animator. Because this is the thing that detects once a animation clip comes in, this is the event that we actually send this is what the animation is actually calling, is this function, which then posts the event with whatever string it comes back with. So we should probably put a breakpoint in here. I see the hydration from Drixie. I can do that. I can stay alive by continuing to drink water. Okay. So probably should have had an event breakpoint in here. So we're going to add one. And then we're probably going to see that we never actually hit anything. Oh. We do get an animation complete. Where is this coming from? By who? This is a stopwatch. Okay, so this is going to be a problem. This is technically being hit all the time by a lot of different stuff. Specifically the stopwatch. So the stopwatch is constantly saying that it's done its animation. That might be a different bug. But is going to be annoying. Oh, is that because this is still counting? That's what's happening, I think. This might be... No, because this should be the clamshell, like the watch opening animation that it's complaining about. Yeah, the enemy's dead, though. It's definitely gone. It's always something. To be fair, we don't make a lot of new enemies, so... In some regards, I'm not surprised that there are weird gotchas that I'm not aware of in my system. Okay, how do I want to tackle this? It's clear the animation is set up. The enemy has an animation. The animation has an on-complete event. The sequence is waiting for the on-complete event, but it never receives it. I can see that the animation it was playing was Southwest. And we can see that Southwest was quote-unquote done and waiting at the end. We did register the event, but we never saw it complete. Technically, we never hit this spot. Where was all that 10-second stuff? We have all this extra logic in here. Oh, that's in the setting of the animation itself. Right, so if it's a looping animation, it has a duration or until the animation is found. Right, so the 10 seconds isn't on the wait. I think that means the sequence is never ending also, because it's always waiting for this forever and never actually getting past it. Which is, again, different problems, but... what is happening? We're going to hit this one still. So once we hit this one, then we can go back into the animation event. We can validate that we're registering it. We can check for any completes coming in. But more importantly, we actually want to go to where these notifications are being called, which is here. And we're going to put a breakpoint in here to see if we ever receive the event. Like, are we at the very least hitting the animation complete animator? So this is going to be the stopwatch. We're going to hit this one, I think, every frame. Sprite renderer. Which sprite renderer? For mini. Animation complete. Okay. That did not take nearly as long as I thought it was going to. So it does look like we did get an animation event for animation complete on the runtime controller. Does it know which one? Can we see which one we're on right now? No. If we go into animator, does this show us what state it thinks it's currently in? Mostly out of curiosity. It must in some way. I'm just not sure where inside of this class to find that information. But we can visually see that, like, it is in the death animation right now. I believe. It could be... no, because we got rid of hit right now. We've removed the hit animation. So I breakpoint past it, but we never... we did not get into here, which... or sorry, into this one. We never hit this... I think that would imply... that the event is going to the wrong spot? Who is this? This is the player. Okay. I shouldn't have F5'd past that. We're going to recreate that scenario. And we're going to see where that event is going. Because we should be able to walk through and see if it's just not connecting. Okay. Honestly, we don't even need these breakpoints anymore. The only one we care about is the breakpoint that stops when we trigger the death status, and the breakpoint for the actual event being detected and then being sent via the notification system. We will also, for the sake of clarity, come into here, and we will have the animator open so that when we're in a broken, or not broken, but in a pause state while debugging, we can at least see what animation it thought it was in. So right now it's idling. We can step forward, we can hit. We can hit. Then we can go back to the animation event receiver. We breakpoint here. We go back to our watches. We can see this is the stopwatch. This is a stopwatch. This is still the stopwatch. Still the stopwatch. This is a sprite renderer. We can see that sprite renderer is on the mini slime animation component. We can see that it is currently in the death, and it believes that it is complete the death animation. So we're going to go through our post notification system. It's posting a notification. That notification is animation controller event. It's going to go down through some sub containers and try and figure out if it has any handlers. It's doing a bunch of crazy logic. Oh. We did get a animation event being sent to here, but this is not death. This is an older system for handling death. So that's a little weird, but unrelated. But that was the only one we found here for that one. Can we quickly actually go look? How is this on an animation event set up? Basically in the exact same way. So what I would expect, post to subscribers who specified a specific sender to observe. So I would have expected it would have been in that table. One of these is null. That's foreboding. Yeah, so 4 things that are listening for animation events. There are 4 things in this subtable. One of them is null and has 0 values associated with it. The other one is a stopwatch. Is this one... This is for the mini slime, but it only has 1 thing registered, which is the knocked out status effect. Oh, is there like a race condition here where somehow it's playing the animation faster than the weight can hit? Like if I put a breakpoint here, are we going to hit this one? Take this one away. Okay. So that's the problem, is the event for death has already triggered. And that's why this works on the other slime, but not this one. Okay. So if we go into here and we look at the death animation for this one, this has a 750 millisecond death, whereas the death on this one is 280. Well, if you're still with me, chat, that is a very satisfying bug. It is very frustrating, but also I found that immensely satisfying. That is a very clear, concise bug of like, why is it only happening with this slime? Why is it not happening with the other slime? That is a clear, understandable reason. It is because the animation is just strictly 3 times faster. And my code is not written properly to handle that situation. So, why? We could just make the animation longer, and I probably will, because I probably want the death to be about the same. But why is it that this animation sequence step that triggers the animation cares? Is this somehow waiting until animation is complete? It would seem that it is. On animation complete, receive this information. If duration is greater than 0, set a duration. Because these are yield returns. So because this has a duration, it is blocking... Oh no, did I account for this? I did not. Okay. This will fix the problem, but fundamentally isn't necessary. Because essentially, this step is already waiting for the animation to be done before moving on. This already has a built-in wait on animation inside of itself. It's just kind of the way that it's written. So I don't think we need this step. And somewhat confusingly, I don't know why this ever worked at all. But there must be something about the fact that the animation is longer that it did work. Okay. We're going to get rid of that step because I don't think we need it. I think that it's already doing everything I want it to do. And I'm curious to see if it works with both slimes, or if there's some reason why the big slime was set up in a way that I needed it. I don't see why I would have, though. Scenes. Let's go back to H8, and we're just going to make another slime here. And this one will not be IT mini slime, but it will be the IT enemy container. Yes. And then we're going to pick up the sword, walk into this next room, and we're going to fight both of these slimes and see if they both die correctly. If anything, I'm more curious why this was ever working. And I feel it may have something to do with the stopwatch continuously spamming its animation complete. I'm going to move this to the other screen so that we can hit the breakpoint, and that enemy fades off. Oh. Well then. He has no stats set, the second enemy. I thought we validated this. Yeah, they're here. But they're not here. If I go into the boar, those are set. If I go into this one, they're set. If I look at the boar here, they're not set. They're not set. They are set. Okay. Sure. Why not? 7, 9, 7, 11, 30. Seven, 9, 7, 11, 30. That's a weird bug. And I don't know what these ones are going to be in the end, but for now we'll at least put them the same. Why is it showing stats correctly inside but not outside? Okay. Now we're going to, before we even move forward, we're going to check to see if this enemy has its stats set correctly. It does, so it should not insta-die because its health is 0. Walk forward, hit this one twice. Hit this one a lot more than twice. And that one also dies. Okay, so we just don't need that step. But The question is why? You gotta love a good race condition. Nothing more classic. Everything looks like it should just work. Oh, it's because the code doesn't do the thing in the orders I think it should. So that one's permanently broken, which is what we've been seeing. Do you die properly? With this extra step that is unnecessary. Yes. Just because the animation is longer. What is the length of the final frame? This has a frame of 35, which can be seen in the bottom left over here when I'm hovering over the frame. I can also just do it this way, 35. And then if we look at this one, what is the last frame of this one? 50. Okay. It's not even that big of a difference. So this one must have a similar on animation complete. It does. Okay. And then this one here also has a specific on animation complete, which is this one. We're going to go into breakpoints. We're going to disable those for now. Okay. And then I want a breakpoint here, which is going to be off by default. And I want to put back my breakpoint for when something dies. Somewhere in here, I think. Okay. Now, I want to see, do we both hit this weight? Do we hit this weight statement and this weight statement? And more importantly, do we hit this add observe before this one here? Specifically for the green slime. Because this race condition, I think, might be related to potentially if we hold on the final frame of an animation, we might be sending animation complete multiple times. I can't imagine that that's how that works, but perhaps it is. And it just so happens that 50 milliseconds is long enough for Unity to hit that call twice and get past both steps. So I'm less caring about the little one. We're just going to avoid it. We should be able to survive both hitting us. Oh, shoot. Not if it redirects my... When you get hit by an enemy, it changes your facing, which is meant to be a quality of life improvement, but sometimes I feel like it is not. Oh, we can't kill both of these at the same time. Okay, we will kill one then the other. I guess that makes sense. We're taking like double damage. Maybe if I hadn't have messed up the one hit, we could have done it. Where I wasted one hit on the little slime. Oh, we are at the 2-hour mark. Okay, this is the last thing. We're gonna do this test. We're gonna see what happens here, and then I'm gonna go get some dinner, and I'll be back in 2 hours at 6 PST to continue doing more cutscene setup and probably finding more edge cases in my system that I had not accounted for. Okay, let's fight this one. Good, that is a good question. Rendquist? I'm probably, I hadn't asked, but I'm assuming I'm mispronouncing that. But ask the question, is it even a race condition that is defining a thread interchange thing, or is it just a scheduling thing? That's the question. I think it may not even be a race condition. I think it might be that the animation on the enemy might be sending this event here, this post-event system from Unity may be triggering basically every frame that this animation is live. That's my thought. So I guess race condition is maybe an incorrect term here. You're correct that it's maybe more accurate to say that this is a bad like setup, maybe? I don't know. But it's that the events are not firing in the order that I would expect, which in my mind defaults to a race condition, which is probably an oversimplification for sure. Okay, so if we select this enemy, why are you not animating? Okay, I'm just gonna... What did I break? Oh, because I dragged in here. Okay, well, if we just, like, let you attack... No, you're just in a broken state now. Alright, one more time. Yeah, so I am not using it correctly then, because I am not running threads. But to me, I've always thought of a race condition... I guess I've built up the idea of a race condition in my head as a term or a phrase for when things are running in out of order. But you are correct that I am technically using that term incorrectly, and as someone who is speaking on the internet, I probably should stop using it, because it is confusing and it spreads my misunderstanding. Am I gonna... No, okay, we're not gonna kill here. That's just bad code. I mean, you're not wrong. But, I mean, the problem here is that so I'm not using any race conditions... Or, sorry, I'm not using any threads, but I am using a ton of coroutines. So coroutines kind of have that thread-esque feel, so maybe that's why my brain defaults to it, but it's still incorrect. But the threading means that the stuff is not as predictable as I would like. Or sorry, the coroutines make things not as predictable as code would normally be written. But yeah, coroutines aren't technically threads, I don't believe. Maybe that's a misunderstanding on my part as well. So here we're hitting this one. Can we see what our animation was? This is a sprite renderer for the player. So this is the player getting hit. I actually probably should have added one here too for the AI. I may have been too late on that though. So this is the sprite renderer for the player. Again, that's fine. This is the ad for the enemy container. Interesting. And this is the ad for the enemy container. So we never hit the on-complete for the enemy at all. Parameter, bool, duration. Is the duration running out? There's no way, because I'm setting this duration to 10 seconds. Right? That is the duration parameter. The one before it is the bool parameter. The one after is the animation of the owner. And then end on animation complete. False. Okay. Okay, so this parameter here chooses whether or not we should end the animation on complete. I see. We are not setting that, which means that we will never hit this chunk of code because we are not setting a receiver. We are instead just setting the animation for 10 seconds. So we are toggling on the animation for 10 seconds, and we are just letting it hold on the 10-second point forever. I have more questions than answers. Is this by default blocking false? Is it built into it? It is. Okay, so I was just wrong. With my initial assumption, I assumed that we didn't need this step because this was going to hold, because we didn't have blocking set to false inlined in the constructor. But I was wrong because I failed to look up here and see that we are already by default saying that this sequence step is blocking false. So this will never block. So it will immediately get to this one. This is the problem. All right, well, we found it. Sometimes reading the code explains the code. So what's happening here is this is a very old piece of code from when I first started adding animations to the system. And I just ignored it for who knows how long. This is setting the animation to true. This is saying, hey, death is true, start playing death animation. Then we set up this sequence that tries to play out some of the other pieces of information. It delays for a little bit, it sets the animation speed to 1, it tells it to play the death animation here with some very specific setup, and then it waits for that animation to be complete. Because of this half-second delay, what was happening was, for the normal enemy, they would die, it would set this to true, they would start playing the death animation. After half a second, it would then start playing out this information, which would then say set the animation to true again, but it's already playing, so it wouldn't do anything. It's just not going to do anything at all, really. And then it's going to hit this one and register the animation for when the animation is complete. Because the animation is still running at the half-second point, it will register that animation, and then about, like, I think we said the regular Slime's animation was 0.75. About 2.5 seconds later, it will hit this animation complete and then continue. For the little slime, because we hit this right away and it was only like a 0.35 seconds, it would happen and finish the animation before this delay was over, and thus we would never register. So this code just needs to go away, and we need to let the death animation complete stuff happen here inside of the sequence as it was written and as it was intended. This should work. Now, Renquist, you're saying what I do when I add code like that is immediately add an if-def debug to the block. It's wise to do that. That's fair. The problem is some of this code was in functionality for a year or two when I was just starting out. And because I've built everything on top of it, I don't have a great excuse, but the excuse is that it's easy to overlook old code while layering the new code on top. And I'm really proud and happy with a lot of the way that I'm really proud and happy of a lot of the stuff I've built, but it's moments like this where I'm like, man, it just feels like there's some stuff that just fundamentally could be rewritten from the ground up. But at the same time, I've spent 5 years working on this, and at some point you got to just accept that, like, it's gonna be a bit busted in spots, and you're gonna have to spend an hour fixing a problem you invented for yourself eons ago, essentially. Because I could take another stab at rewriting everything, but then this project will never get done. It's just always a little frustrating when you spend so much time trying to fix a problem, when in reality this stream should have just been add a slime and it just works. Theoretically though, anytime we want to add a new enemy, we shouldn't run into this problem, and it should be a lot cleaner and simpler moving forward. The system works, it just has bugs. And as much as I would love to write code without bugs, sadly I'm not quite there yet. And I don't know if anyone really is. Maybe our AI overlords, but probably not today. Maybe in a few more months or years. But I'm going to keep doing my thing, and I'm going to keep trying to make my code less buggy, one step at a time. And I'm rambling, and I need to go get dinner, and we're 20 minutes over because of this bug. I am going to stop. I will be back in now an hour and a half, or hour and 40 minutes or so. We'll do another 2-hour stream. We will continue working on cutscenes. We will do cutscenes part 2, and we will continue working on building out more of these cutscene moments, continue working on the tuning for the first little bit here, getting some more slime placements, and start doing multiple runs. Thank you, Rendquist, for hanging out. I appreciate all the chat. It's been super fun, and I will be back in a little while. For now, though, this is going to be Tolhi signing out. Later, folks.